So why am I playing Skyrim 7 years later? I could answer that in one word, but that would defeat the point of making a video. I could explain all the possible options that are open to the player at the beginning of the game, but that should be clear to anyone who's played it for more than a couple of hours. What I want to do is talk about the reasons why I love playing video games. I grew up in an exciting era of video game development. When I first became aware of video games, they were all in 2D, and some of them only just coming into colour. I remember playing Sonic the Hedgehog in my cousin's basement on holiday, and it blew my mind. Although the graphics are dated by today's standards and clearly pixelated, in my childlike wonder I saw Sonic as the image on the front cover, clearly speeding through the green hill zone. With that first taste, I was hooked. I spent months, if not years, trying to persuade my mother to buy me my own console, and it was only when one of my best friends got a Nintendo 64 for his birthday that she finally gave in and got me one for my birthday. My friend had showed me Ocarina of Time when I played at his house, and after exploring only a few of the mysteries plaguing Hyrule, I knew that this was a game that I needed to complete. Seeing that the technology had moved on and that 3D was a reality excited me, and made me wonder what incredible things game developers would do next. I sunk countless hours into that game, searching every possible room, nook and cranny I could find, searching for the secrets that are hidden throughout the mostly open world that Nintendo had expertly crafted. Skyrim is much the same. Seemingly simple at the beginning, the numerous options available vaguely obscured. The first time I played Skyrim, I was concerned the climate might not be as appealing to the eyes as Oblivion due to all the whites and greys of the snows and mountains, but the improved character models quickly made up for it. All the races had been drastically improved upon the last games. The Khajiits looked more like cat people, the Argonians looked more like lizard people, and the rest of the races didn't look like they'd had their faces molded from a lump of clay by a 2-year-old. When you start the game, the story is instantly introduced to you the moment Alduin comes crashing down on the tower above, revealing one of the first dragons seen in an Elder Scrolls game. This introduction gives the player one of the first options, whether to follow the storyline or to choose their own path. From here, the player is given near countless choices on where they can take the character. They could follow Ralof and help the Stormcloaks, or they could help Hadvar and help the Imperials, or they could just begin to wander the frozen lands of the north of Tamriel. So what makes it a good game, and what has made me start so many new games across these 7 years? And why do I have 3 different versions of the game? Is it the mods? Is it the extensive lore? Is it the epic and immersive quests? Is it the vast skill tree filled with game-changing perks? Or could it be the vast crafting system? It could be all of this. And more. And there's always the funny bugs, legendary items, and the huge replay value, the great characters, or the ability to roleplay in countless different ways. Throughout this video, we will try and focus on some of these most important aspects. I don't want to be biased, and we will be discussing some of the things which have made it bad at the time, and a few of the things which haven't aged too well. Mainly though, we want to focus on what allows us as gamers to play this game and other Bethesda games for hundreds, if not thousands of hours, although maybe not all at once. For starters, Lost to the Ages is an epic quest that can only be started by stumbling upon it either by reading a book, finding a shard of Ethereum, or wandering into Garnthams. The fact that you can only start this quest in this way just shows how far out of the way Bethesda has put this quest. You could play the whole game without ever encountering this quest, but when you do, it's in a realistic and immersive way. There's many quests throughout the game like this that are introduced in subtle ways that help with your immersion in the world that Bethesda has made, but this is definitely one of my favourites. Upon entering this Dwemer ruin, I'm not saying that name again, you're warned by a ghostly voice to
Please, turn back, before it's too late.
Once entering the cavern within, a ghost approaches you to tell you her tragic story.
What are you still doing here? Let me guess. You're here for the treasure, aren't you? Just like all the others. It's a long story. You ever heard of Etherium? A rare mineral used by the dwarves. Supposedly, they had to build a special forge, the Etherium Forge, to even work with it. The items it made were so powerful, they went to war over it, and the forge was lost. Or so the story goes. I spent my life tracking down that legend, until my damn apprentice stole everything from me, and published it all under his own name. And now I can't rest. Not until I have proof. Something to show the world what I discovered, what I did. That my life mattered. But it's hopeless. I died here, just like all the others. Turn back. Turn back before you become the next victim. Sure, that's what they all say. I'm not going to talk you out of it, am I? I know. I was just like you once. Well, if you want to reach the summit, you're going to need some help. You want a hand? All right, lead on then. This is where I ended up. It was quite the fall. Grab my journal, would you? We're going to need it.
She'll then direct you to her body nearby. On her body you'll find 2 books, her journal and the Etherium Wars. The first will tell you her story and give you clues for the upcoming quest, while the Ethereum Wars tells a history of the Dwemer War over Ethereum, which isn't necessary but gives a lot more context for the quest and can be interesting if you can be bothered reading it. This is also another way to start the quest if you haven't already. From here, there's a few Dwemer automatons and a small puzzle, if you can call it that. We continue through the cave to find a couple of Falmer hiding out in the dwarven remains. After taking them out and continuing further into the cave towards the summit, we eventually reach some chorus bugs. Deadly poisonous bugs that you don't want to get too close to. After getting past these disgusting horrors, we finally reach the summit and find the place where Katria fell to her death. It's at this point that gives you an entirely new perspective, as you look down to discover you're towering above the place you originally came into this dungeon. From here you discover Katria's bow Zephyr, and get a great view of how she might have fallen, probably just taking a rest and enjoying the view. Once leaving here, we enter the final area of this dungeon. A couple of enemies wander about near the bottom of the area ahead, easily taken out with a bit of stealth. You may see different enemies if you're playing yourself due to all my mods. After finishing them off, you'll be faced with another puzzle. Pretty easy if you have Katria's journal, which gives you a clue. Easier if you find the clue on the nearby body, and simple if you remember the code like me. If you're to get one wrong, you'd be faced with the Dwarven Centurion storming at you with a wall of steam. Luckily, I could avoid that and continue on to my second shard of Ethereum. I had already collected one earlier, and showing every part of this quest could take an hour or more. So from here, we are sent off to get the other pieces of Ethereum.
So, it is real. Let me see it. Look, I saw a drawing of this once. This shard, it's part of a key. A key made of pure Ethereum. The key to the forge. We have to find the other pieces, of course. There should be, 3 more. 1 for each of the 4 cities that worked on the forge. I had a map in my journal. That's where we should start. Really? Well, now that makes things easier. We still have to find the forge itself. I had a lead on that too. There's so much to do. I'm going to head out and start tracking things down. We'll meet again, I'm sure of it. For the first time in a long while, I think we may actually be able to do this. And I owe it all to you.
Ralthvathar is the next location. It's just west of Windhelm, another Dwemer ruin, larger than the last. This ruin is guarded by bandits. Take out the guys outside and head inside to find some bandits sleeping, easily taken out with some stealth. Walk past the fire and burning skeever to find another couple of bandits. Walk down the next corridor to find a locked door. If your lockpicking skill is high enough, you might be able to get past the master door and onwards to get to another couple of automatons. After destroying them, you can move through to the crossbow above, aiming at the bandits below. Push the lever to release an explosive bolt, hopefully killing all of them. I only got one, but took down the others with some fireballs and my sword. After making our way down to find Alan Dufont with a special weapon on him, Aegisbane, this guy also needs to be killed for a Dark Brotherhood quest later, so you'll be saving yourself some work by killing him now. There's one more bandit down here. After beating them, we move deeper into the Dwemer ruins, where we confront another Dwemer automaton, and another one, and another one, and another one. We work our way deeper and deeper into the ruin to enter a vast cavern filled with Falmer. Take out these ugly blind monsters by hitting them in that spongy place where their eyes used to be, and moving on to the next one. Move up to the top of the room to find a couple more Falmer, the one hiding out in the hut by a Dwemer button. We hit that button and unlock the bridge to the next area. Work your way through the corridor filled with Dwemer automatons and onwards to the final room. Make sure you're prepared, as this won't be easy. Take out the Falmer hiding in the huts, behind the chorus, and in the darkest corners. Once you finish them off, remove the skulls, Dwemer parts, and the spine from the blocked gears. After that, you can activate the button, drop the bridge, and release the Dwemer Centurion. I got lucky and it didn't notice me right away due to my high stealth skill. After finishing it off, go through the bridge to retrieve your next shard of Ethereum. Here you'll find Katria waiting for you, fighting some Dwemer automatons. After defeating them, you can collect your reward, another shiny blue shard of Ethereum.
I'm glad that's over. That's what, your third? Alright, only one left to go. I'll meet you there.
The final piece I got is definitely the easiest, not far from Markarth. You can get there on horse pretty quickly. Just head north until you reach this small dwarven ruin. Ignore the Dwemer dragon here, hop down and go through the tunnel onwards to the final piece.
Beat me to it this time. That's the last one, isn't it? It's almost time. I'll meet you at the forge.
After finding all three pieces, you can try and hunt down the Etherium Forge. Katria's journal will give you some good clues and send you near Riften. Once there, you'll need to take out a few more bandits and find a strange statue. Katria will appear once again next to it.
You made it! And you brought the shards! Look at the device here. The gear in the center is just about the right size. Try putting the shards in, and we'll see what happens.
The statue will rise from the ground, and the secret entrance to the Etherium Forge is revealed.
It's true. It's all true. Come on, let's check it out.
Delving into this final dungeon, we find another tonal lock puzzle which opens the door to the Etherium Forge.
Is that the forge?
Once here, we'll need to battle it out with many Dwemer spiders and spheres. After beating each and every one of them, you'll need to face it off with the Forge Master. This isn't an easy fight, so make sure to be prepared. You need to take on his wall of steam and his heavy melee attacks. Just one of the many boss battles throughout the game, and in the perfect place at the end of a long quest. And of course, you're rewarded with the treasure originally teased to you by Katria. If you only have the base game installed, you'll be offered three choices: the Ethereal Crown, the Ethereal Staff, and the Ethereal Shield. You can only craft one, but each of them is filled with its own special powers. If you have the mods I've got installed, then you'll also have a huge choice of armors and weapons along with the three standard options. The crown allows for you to have 2 standing stone bonuses, which is incredibly powerful and allows incredibly versatile and varying playstyles. The Ethereal Shield will turn enemies ethereal after bashing them, which can be incredibly useful for giving you some space when enemies are doing too much damage to you, or if you just want to focus on one enemy, or if you don't actually want to hurt the enemy you're fighting. The final item is the Ethereal Staff, which allows you to summon a Dwemer, spider, or sphere, which doesn't take up your summon count, so you can build up a huge squad to take on some of your bigger challenges.
That crown. It's everything I could have hoped for. And with that, it's done. No one could possibly deny what we've found now. For me, I've done what I set out to do. But you, take that out into the world, and if anyone asks, tell them what we discovered, together. I don't know. I honestly don't know. After all these years, it's a miracle even this much survived. I've waited so long for this moment. We found it, at last. And now, I think I can rest. Farewell, my friend, wherever your travels take you.
Each of these items is incredibly special in its own right, and a much deserved reward after such a long fight. This mission defines why I love Skyrim, and it's got its issues, but it's a decent quest. It's not the longest quest, it's not the shortest quest, but it's fun, and it's interesting. At the end, we get to help a ghost finally find some peace in the afterlife. We find out enough lore to pique our interest about the disappearance of the dwarves, but not enough to quench that thirst, and we're rewarded with a treasure worthy of an adventurer. Skyrim is full of quests like this. Some of them, like this one, will send you all over Skyrim. Others will be confined to one city, area, building, or dungeon. Any random person you bump into could lead you stumbling down a path you never expected. None so much as the Daedric drinking challenge, where after a night of drinking with a friend, you're waking in a temple to find that last night you got married and wrecked the temple. After much investigative work, you find out you married a goat and sold it to a giant? These are just some of the quests, not even including the storyline, but we'll get to that. But Skyrim has hundreds of quests, obviously some better than others, but all of them filled with their own quirks and Bethesda charm. So let's get to the story, and I've got to admit it hasn't aged well. It does have its moments, especially if it's your first time playing the game. But once you've completed it once or twice, you'll either want to rush through it, or get to the shouts, or just avoid it entirely. However, despite some of the problems with the story, other elements of the game more than make up for the slightly lacking story. For example, the guilds are filled with great quests that will keep you going for hours. The Dark Brotherhood is filled with loads of memorable quests. Maybe not quite as perfect as Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood, but a lot of fun nonetheless, with a fantastic final chapter that I'll leave you to find out about. The companions can be a lot of fun, especially if you discover their secrets. The Mages Guild is shorter than I would have liked, but still takes you on a magical journey that leaves you wanting more. And of course, all the Daedric quests are fun in their own way, finding out about the individual personalities of each of the Daedric princes and the tasks you must perform to obtain their legendary quest items. Finally, while you may think me saying that the story isn't perfect is a bad thing, it doesn't matter, because a story is simply a template for the player to create their own story about their own hero and their journey through this treacherous, frozen wastes of Skyrim. Bethesda has crafted a world where the player can drop in as a prisoner, being held for a crime of the player's choosing. From this moment, the choices are near limitless, and you'll always discover new parts of the game you never knew about, new ways to play, and fun Easter eggs the developers hid for the determined and wandering players. So why am I still playing this game 7 years later? Could it maybe be to do with all the mods? I think the answer is yes. I'd probably come back to this game once in a while without mods, but with them, I can make this game almost whatever I want. Skyrim is the most modded game on the Nexus. The Legendary Edition has over 58,000 mods, and the Special Edition has over 14,000, with some of the mods for the Legendary Edition working with the Special Edition, if you know what you're doing. On my current file, I have over 700 mods installed, which took me a while to get working smoothly, but it is working now. The differences between unmodded Skyrim and modded Skyrim is night and day. It's clear to see from these comparisons how drastic the change is, and over time, this will only improve. At this point, I have a mod for almost everything. Some are simple conveniences like a new favorites menu or faster arrows, some add entirely new weapons and armor. One of my favorites that makes the biggest change to the game is the Legacy of the Dragonborn. This adds a museum to Solitude that gives you a space for almost every unique item in the game, and supports a huge number of other mods. This museum is vast and adds so much more depth and purpose to the game. This has made a huge change to my game, and I can't imagine playing without it. Another mod I love is an overhaul by Chesco called Frostfall. This adds warmth and wetness to the game, meaning that you need to be a lot more careful when venturing out to some of the coldest and wettest parts of Skyrim. This makes things a lot more challenging, and makes you attempt old and new challenges with completely new tactics. Obviously, there are some things you can't change, but over the last 7 years, modders have done some truly incredible things. They have thousands of armor and weapons mods, thousands of quest mods that add countless hours of already ridiculous playtime to the vanilla game, texture overhauls for items that you hadn't even thought of, new animations, new NPCs, new game mechanics, new perks, new spells, new areas, and some mods will even completely overhaul Skyrim to be a completely new game, such as Enderall. There are also even more ambitious projects that are still in the works, and probably the reason that I will still be playing Skyrim in another 7 years. My favorite and probably the most famous of these are Skywind, Skyblivion, and Beyond Skyrim. All of these are attempting to recreate the lands of the older Elder Scrolls games, such as Morrowind and Oblivion. These are huge, epic, and almost overly ambitious projects, but from the sounds of it, they all have big teams working on them consistently, and Beyond Skyrim has already released its first part, Beyond Skyrim Bruma, which I played and incredibly enjoyed. It was great being back in Cyrodiil exploring the snowy north around Bruma. I could try and list all the mods I've installed, but that could take hours. Instead, I'll link to the ones I've mentioned, some of my favourites, and my mod list so you can pick and choose the ones that you like. I'll also soon be releasing more videos on my mods and possibly some modding tutorials to make Skyrim the game you've always wanted. So finally, I'd like to recommend a few mods which I think everyone should have. For starters, I think everyone should have the Skyrim Script Extender, or SKSE, which allows for many of the more complex mods to work. SkyUI is another essential that allows access to the mod configuration menu and completely overhauls the menu interface, allowing for more control and details to be seen. Another essential has to be the Static Mesh Improvement mod, which is mostly a texture overhaul, but also changes a lot of meshes or objects and to be a lot more 3D. What were once drawn-on ropes become fully rounded. What was once 2D rings become real 3D chains. This is one of the mods that once you've played with, it's almost impossible to play without. Another final mod that I'd recommend would be the Alternate Start mod. This gives you a number of different choices on how you can start the game, and for those who like roleplaying, this is the perfect choice. You can start as a mage, you can start in any of the guilds, you can start rich, you can start poor. If you want choice, this is the mod for you. And there's so many other mods that I would recommend, and probably will recommend in time. But if you haven't played Skyrim, with or without mods, go do it now. It's available on almost every platform now, so you've got no excuse. It's an amazing game filled with all sorts of funny, epic, touching, exciting, and fulfilling moments. It's one of those games you'll never forget, and will always leave you wanting to play more. I've completed so many games since playing Skyrim originally, but I've always found myself coming back to it. Whether it's been years, months, weeks, days, or even hours, the land of Skyrim always feels like home.